Hello, people. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining me here on CSR Lens. I'm so grateful to have all of you here today for us to have insightful discussion on corporate social responsibility. So today we are looking, thank you, and let me just say that you can send in your comments and your questions for us to try to answer them, and of course your concerns as well, so that we can look at all of it together with my guests. Today we are looking at consolidating the practice of corporate social responsibility in Ghana. What are the lessons? And we all know that there are things that we claim, some organizations claim to be having corporate social responsibilities, but then we need to have an insightful conversation in-depth conversation as to whether some of the things they're doing is really corporate social responsibility or is just something else. My guest today is Eunice Asantewaa Ankomah. She is a senior communications and public relations strategist. Eunice is currently leads a team in an organization where they work on the reputation and visibility of the organization. She loves communication as well, and she always look out for opportunities to share ideas and share insights on the subject corporate social responsibility. So Eunice, thank you so much for joining me here today. Hello, Eunice.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ohinewa.
I hope your afternoon is going well.
Yes, very well. Thank you. And good afternoon to all our viewers and everyone joining us.
Yes. Okay. So yes, let's go straight into some of the articles you have published on corporate social responsibility. So the first article you published is titled Corporate Social Responsibility, the Concept and the Misconceptions. And this was published on the 2nd of April 2019. And your second article is titled CSR Beyond Corporate Philanthropy in a Global Crisis. And this was published on the 4th of May 2020. That's just about 5 days ago. In these two articles, you raised very important points, and I would like us to go through them to establish a bit of a background as to our discussions for today. So first of all, in your first article, which is the corporate social responsibility, the concept and the misconceptions, you raised an issue where an organization tried to identify 9 of the sustainable development goals in order to add it to and align its business operations to it. How critical is this for every corporation?
Thank you, Ohinewa. So like you rightly said, I was just trying to draw inspiration from a company that used the SDG goals as part of their CSR initiatives. Just to let people know that CSR go beyond what we usually see, or the last mile. That is a corporate philanthropy, and it's more strategic and at the core of business operations. So it's not an ad hoc function. You get up and you're doing CSR. It's strategic, and it has to sit deep at the core of every business operation. And then the second one was just in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of calls on companies to be socially responsible.
Great. But yes, before you even go to the second one, I would want us to go look at the first one, some of the critical points you raised in there. So I know that as an organization, of course, a lot of corporations need to work looking at the triple bottom perspective, which is the planet, the people, and profit. So how critical will taking the sustainable development goals, for instance, be for any organization? I mean, if you're going to adopt it to align your business operations, is this something that every corporation should be looking at?
Okay, anyway, so first of all, usually, basically, your CSR is your responsibility towards society. And there are 4 levels that every organization can look at in planning CSR. And so if you take the Sustainable Development Goals and you identify, let's say, SDG Goal 1, and you know that that goal aligns with your business operations, and it also has implications for the community within which you operate, then you can decide that as a business, you'd want to align or go that direction. If you take any of the SDG goals 9, 6, 5, and you know that your business operations directly impact the lives of people around that particular goal, then you can decide that you would also align your business processes or your CSR initiatives to that. But I think that even before we go deep into the discussion, it will be good for people to know what we are talking about, CSR.
Exactly.
And then we can carry on from there. So basically, every organization has a responsibility towards the people that their activities impact. So if you are operating in Ghana, for example, you have people who depend on your products. You have the government depending on you. You also know that your activities might impact your immediate environment. So the community that you're operating in, your activities might impact them. And even before you even start your operations, you should know that before you come to Ghana, you need to meet some regulatory requirements to register the business. The fact that you have even decided to operate, society expects that at least you'll be profitable or you would make money so that you can expand, grow the business, and then you can employ more people. And so that's basically what CSR is about. That you know that as an organization, your activities impact the life of people, and you're going to be responsible for that impact, whether negative or positive. And you're going to ensure as much as practicable to mitigate against, if it's negative, those negative impacts on the people or your stakeholders.
Awesome. Awesome. One other point you raised in that article had to do with employers being responsible. Do you think that a lot of organizations have failed in this regard? Because if you look at corporate social responsibility in its holistic form, we know that it's not just about corporate philanthropy, which we will be coming to that. But then do you think that organizations have failed when it comes to looking at their internal ambassadors, that is the employees? Do you think that they have failed in that direction in terms of paying attention to their needs, their safety, and other things that develops their potential?
Okay, I won't conclude that they have failed. Oftentimes it's because some of these people err on the side of caution, because they don't. A lot of companies do not know that being responsible also includes your immediate employees, like your internal stakeholders, like you said, your number one ambassadors. A lot of people do not know that your responsibility towards them, aside employing them and paying their salaries, there is more to that. Being transparent, trusting them, ensuring that they are safe. All those things come together to boost employee morale or motivation. And so to draw a sharp line and say they have failed or have not failed, I cannot say that. But I think that what most companies have not paid attention to is that side of CSR, where you are aware that your actions do impact the lives of your employees, and especially those who also depend on them. And so in your treatment of them, it's not just about bringing them to the workplace and paying their salaries, but ensuring that they are developed. I mean, some companies say their CSR is to be an employer of choice. And to be an employer of choice, they take interest in everything that employee does. So you're not just interested in you coming to work. So the working environment itself is conducive. You have that flexibility to develop yourself and do other things. And so such organizations that decide that they would be employers of choice, you find out that turnover is very low. Exactly. Because every one of the employees there is satisfied and is motivated to do more. And so maybe we will get there where companies would see their CSR not as an external affair, but would know that it starts from home. And then once the people there are happy, motivated, and because they are brand ambassadors, that spirit of joy is, you see it outside, and it reflects in how they even treat your customers. It reflects in how they sell your brand beyond the four walls of your organization.
Awesome.
So they are on it. I wouldn't say they failed. Maybe we need to do more
they need to
than
do
we are
more.
doing.
I totally agree with you. Eunice, what in your view has accounted for the misconceptions of the concept of corporate social responsibility? Is it an issue that we as communications practitioners, I mean, we spearhead mostly when it comes to corporate social responsibility within our organizations? Is it that we haven't taken the pain to understand in entirety what the concept entails, or we are only looking for the easy way out when it comes to doing things?
Okay, so Ankomah, you know that for an organization to be considered as socially responsible, there are 4 levels that the organization needs to meet. So you have the economic, where we think that we expect that you are profitable, because nobody wants to associate with a failure. So that side is not so much seen.
Hello, Eunice, are you there? Hello, Eunice.
Of the practice. Hello, Ankomah.
Okay.
Hello.
You're here. You're live.
Can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Can you hear? You can hear me now. Okay. Apologies. So I was saying that CSR has 4 levels, and then the 3 of the levels, if you are not likely, will not. It might not look like it's going to fetch you some publicity like the 4th level does. The first is the economic, where everybody believes that we all expect that you are profitable as a company. So in your day-to-day activities, you're working hard to ensure that you are profitable. And then there is the ethics, where we expect that you follow standards that guide your business, the societal standards, and then we also have the legal requirements you need to meet. And then there is the 4th one, which is the philanthropy. And that is what we kind of see a lot, because that's considered as being a good corporate citizen, and everybody gets to see that side. So you are donating, you are in the media, gets to give you some goodwill. So oftentimes, even we practitioners tend to tilt towards that last mile, where we get to advise our organizations to do A, B, C, D, to donate and do that and do all those things. But the 3 I mentioned earlier is like a foundation. It's a building block. If you don't get those 3 right, you are likely not to get the money to do the 4th one, which is a philanthropy. So if you're not being sustainable enough, or doing the right things that would ensure that you make profits, that would ensure that you pay your taxes, that is regulatory, that would ensure that you are meeting all the standards and ethics that guide your work, then you are likely to fall short at the 4th one. But we all like the 4th one because it makes us look good.
Exactly. I mean, we all like the 4th one. That brings us straight to your second publication, which is titled CSR Beyond Corporate Philanthropy in a Global Crisis. Of course, we currently find ourselves in COVID-19 pandemic, and almost every individual is so expectant when it comes to organizations doing one thing or the other towards the fight of COVID-19. Of course, we had the president about 2 months ago announcing a fund, and he went ahead to donate 3 months of his salary as seed money to grow the fund. Do you think that our expectations as a public is what is putting pressure on organizations to do the corporate philanthropy instead of looking at CSR in its entirety?
I think that first of all, there is nothing really wrong if you have you're profitable enough and are doing all the other things and want to donate into a fund. I think there is nothing wrong with it. But what we need to be careful not to do is to judge organizations who are perhaps not going out to make donations for us to see. Because like I earlier mentioned, CSR is big. The philanthropy part is just is the icing on the cake. When you have done all the other things, when you have done all the other things and you have succeeded and the business is booming and your employees are happy and the environment is safe and you're making sure that all your practices are in line with regulatory standards, then your brand becomes credible enough for people to like and want to patronize you for your business to grow. So we get to see the fourth one. So there is nothing wrong with that. But I think that in a crisis situation like this, where we all don't seem to have an idea of where it's going to end, our focus really and expectation of organizations should be their sustainability beyond COVID-19. So if they are giving now and they are laying off employees and not doing it the right way and they are not paying workers and we are singing their praises, is that what we want as a people? Or we would want to make sure that before we even come to donate, we are doing the other things right. The work environment is safe. They are putting in place all the safety precautions that needs to be put in place. They are being transparent with their employees and having the right conversation. Because around this time, there is so much uncertainty. You don't want to keep your employees in the dark. If you think that there are some things you're doing as a business that is likely to threaten your sustainability beyond COVID-19, you should be reviewing your processes now. And that's all part of your responsibility to society. So yes, the donation is good when you have the money too, when you have in excess too. But if you don't have and you think that you still need to think about how sustainable your business will be beyond COVID-19, you still need to think about your employees' welfare beyond COVID-19. You still need to think around the people who, your customers, because they are also trusting that you'll be in business so that you'll be there for them. So businesses need to make all those hard, difficult decisions before we think of the last ice on the cake, where we come out and show to the whole world how much we have given to support the fight. You can support the fight in several ways without necessarily it being a donation.
Yes, who is to blame here? Is it we, the practitioners, or it is society that has made it look like if you do not donate to a community, it means you're not socially responsible? Who is to blame here?
I think that as practitioners, we have not done much in guiding our organizations accordingly. I mean, you have organizations violate rules and other things, and you would have practitioners come and defend them. Of course, you're doing your work because you're also looking at your reputation and image. But I think that with continuous education and understanding of what the CSR practice is and all the factors that come together to form that bigger pie we call CSR. If your organization is taking just a piece of the pie, you'll be in a position to draw attention. But you see, we can also blame just practitioners. Sometimes advising management is different, and then they taking the advice is also another thing. So I think that we should just generally, it's a different ball game altogether. So we can't blame it on practitioners, neither can we blame it on society. And for society, we always have our expectations. The moment you come around and you say you are a producer of, say, Ahiniwa Diaries, everybody is looking forward to Ahiniwa Diaries. Everybody has expectations of what, because you tell them what Ahiniwa Diaries is going to do and what Ahiniwa Diaries will offer the society. So once you say that, we all are up in arms waiting for the things you have promised that your business will do. And so we always have our expectations. it is up to we practitioners guiding our organizations to make sure that those expectations are met with a balance, without cutting or falling short of one and then hyping one the other. It's full. So you need to make sure that you are a rounded figure organization. You are doing everything right to ensure that the people are happy, your CSR is on course and meets every policy that has been put out there, and then you are doing what you said you would do.
Eunice, do you think that some organizations, I must say, even take the pain to develop internal CSR policies? Or we just go about doing the normal philanthropic work and we're done? Because at the end of the day, when you see most of the CSR reports, it's all about, oh, we did a donation to community A, we put up a 2-classroom block for community B. That's all there is. But sometimes, even with these organizations, when it comes to their internal stakeholders, that is the employees, you'll find out that there are lots of a level of abuses that even goes on internally, and they're not paying attention to some of these things. Do you think that we even take the pain to develop internal CSR policies?
I think that it's organization specific. For some organizations, the moment you even think of registering, setting up the business, because CSR sits at the core of your operations, it should be something that you develop along the line. You don't do everything and then you now want to look at, okay, society expects that I should be responsible, so which areas can I do and do right? So if you're having a CSR policy, I think that it should be a holistic document. You can't say you have one that speaks to just your employees and one that speaks to your external stakeholders. It's CSR, and it contains everything that you are doing to be responsible as an organization. So it touches on your profitability, what you are doing as a business to remain profitable. You have compliance, ensuring that you comply with all the regulatory standards that are there. Labor laws, you ensure that the labor laws are carefully followed. And so you are not just doing it because it is internal and they say you should follow the labor law. So you should know that it is your responsibility as an organization to do that. And so you just don't wait and then do things and say, okay, I have one internal one that speaks to just my internal practices. And then, of course, you can, because you are reporting. And a lot of the times, because the three I mentioned earlier, the economic, the ethical, and those things, a lot of companies see that as things that pertain to just internal processes and activities. So that's, I think, how come a lot of them do not talk about what they do when it comes to employee relations and how they're doing to improve the lives of their employees, and just focus on the one that touches on the external stakeholders, where they talk about how much tax they've paid to the government and the donations they have made and all that. I think it's not bad, but maybe because we are now starting the conversation around what CSR is in its totality, organizations may want to consider touching on some of the things they are doing to develop their employees, some of the things they are doing, and then they should leave it. Because if you put it in a report and I'm an employee and I see that that thing you've put in the report is not being done, then it means that you are even falling short of transparency, which is very key in your operations and interactions with your employees. And so maybe there shouldn't be one looking at internal. We should have one holistic document. And when we are reporting on it, it should be a report that when I see as an employee that my organization is doing this, I can beat my chest and say, yes, my organization did it. In fact, when it comes to staff development, these are the processes that they put in place. If it comes to women empowerment or equity or equality at the workplace, or anything, issues that borders on gender, this is what my organization is doing. And recently, I saw a video by one organization as part of their CSR reporting. So they were looking at their gender equality initiatives and women empowerment. And they gave the employees the opportunity to speak for themselves what the company is doing to develop them. And so these are some of the things organizations can do. So it's not just one report you have internally that speaks to just internal things you are doing, because you are responsible and we are all looking up to you to touch on all these levels. It's good to let us know how you're doing it. So if you are developing a policy, it should cut across. And then if you are reporting, same should be done.
Okay. Yes, in 2016, the government of Ghana, led by the CSR Ankomah-Tindi administration, so this was specifically done by Dr. Ekosio Gabra. So he led the launch of the National CSR Policy. What is your take on the launch of on the National CSR Policy? Do you think that we have done much when it comes to using it as guidelines for institutions to develop their internal CSR policies?
Okay, Hinwa, to start off, I know it's been launched, but I don't know to what extent it's been enforced, or I don't know to what extent organizations are being held to that policy document. But when you look at it, Ghana had a clear I'm listening, Ohiniwa.
So the policy, there was supposed to be a setup of what we call the National CSR Secretariat, which was actually opened in 2017. As to what, and the policy was very clear what their responsibility should be, which is to help coordinate activities, CSR activities of institutions, of course, in Ghana. As to what the Secretariat is doing, I have no idea as I speak to you now, but hopefully we're going to get them what they've been doing so far. I mean, it's been like 3 years, and what their outfit has been doing. But then that was just by the way. You can go ahead with your point.
Okay, so I was saying that when you look at the policy documents, clearly as a country, we have in our minds what we want our CSR initiatives to look like, and the principles that we want to hold organizations to, and even thematic areas that we think that organizations can look at in considering their CSR initiatives. And that's really in line with the global standards. So we touch on the economic bits of the CSR, where we expect that as companies who are setting up in Ghana, they should be profitable. Like I said, we all want to associate with companies that are doing well, because the benefits for us as a community is enormous. And then they also talked about the social and the environmental relationship, where we want to ensure that in as much as you are operating and our people are enjoying your services and you are employing our people, we should also think about the environment. We should live, the environment should live beyond your organization. And I mean, they had clear principles. And so if the policy is being enforced, or like I said, if it's really being enforced and organizations are being held to it, then it's going to be, it's a good guideline for all companies in drawing their own CSR activities and then initiatives. Because when you talk of the principle of accountability, transparency, and ethical behavior, you have respect for human rights, you have respect for rule of law. All those things help put organizations in order. So like it serves as a check. And then if you are prepared to do a CSR, they have various thematic areas you can align with. So if you are an institution that's look at gender, then clearly our CSR policy has something in there for you. If you're an organization that is passionate about health and education, our CSR policy document has something for you in there. So I think that the document is a good document. I've looked at it, and I think I like the direction we are going as a country. But what I'm not sure is the enforcement, and whether we are doing much to ensure that organizations align with it when they set up and register in Ghana, even those who are operating, whether they are aligning their CSR policies and initiatives to these directives and principles that have been outlined in our own CSR documents.
Yeah, knowing that this is not legally binding, and so you will need to look at it from a very ethical perspective in order to add this or align to these perspectives. For education purposes, I would like to go through the thematic areas for our viewers on the CSR, on the national CSR policy. Okay. So it says that a number of key themes underlie the CSR policy objectives. They constitute the strategic pillars that form the foundation of the policy objectives and encompass the following areas. So poverty eradication, employment and decent work for all, sustainable agriculture, food security and nutrition, health and population, education, gender equality and women's empowerment, sustainable infrastructure development, that is energy, water, sanitation and transport, sustainable use and management of natural resources, inclusive economic growth and industrialization, sustainable production and consumption, and the last bit has to do with conservation and sustainable use of marine resources, oceans and seas, ecosystems, and biodiversity. So this is very clear, and it tells us that it's a great, it was done in our context, in the Ghanaian context. And if organizations should align their internal CSR policies to this, they would be able to reach a wider phase when it comes to supporting some of these areas of the national policy.
Yes, Ohiniwa, like I mentioned earlier, it's clear what we want as a country, and so if it's being enforced, it just gives organization a clear direction. So anywhere I find myself, any sector or industry I'm in, I know there is something in there that I can contribute to and add to the other things I am doing, being legally compliant and all those things. I can adopt one of these areas as area that we would channel parts of our profits to support the government develop the country. So it's very clear, and I think that it's a good document that needs to be enforced to just help organizations align properly.
Yeah, so I'm sure we're going to use this platform to call on governments to maybe get the CSR Secretariat to look at its responsibilities well, so that they can assist organizations in order to use this national policy and align with their internal CSR policies. Let me just remind our viewers that you can please send in your comments and your questions so that my guest Eunice can help you address all those questions and concerns. Eunice, I would like us to look at our current practice of corporate social responsibility in Ghana. What has been your observations so far when it comes to how organizations are going about their CSR practice?
I think that it's a combination of corporate philanthropy and then the other, requirements that we expect of responsible organizations, being profitable, legal compliance, your ethical standards and all those things. It's a combination of that. Currently, that's what we are doing in this country. But you have a few focusing more on the corporate philanthropy because that gives them, it gives them a lot of goodwill. And that goodwill, see your organization always in the news and in the media and all those things. And you have some who have also turned years into foundations, and where they have a foundation that supports different societal initiatives, and I think that is good. And so we are doing well. We are doing well, except that we should try to strike a balance so that we don't just put one aspect of CSR ahead of all others. We don't and let the joy and the publicity that come with the donations we make overshadow the other things that we can do, the safety of our employees, the safety of the people who are consuming our products. Because sometimes even the ensuring that the right combination of the things that you say your product contains, if it's food items, all those things come up to making sure or telling your level of responsibility as an organization. So as a country, I think we are on course, except that we should try and strike a balance so that we don't just let the publicity bit of that comes with the corporate philanthropy overshadow all the other things that we want to do as a country. CSR is a beautiful thing. I mean, if you balance it well, you see the end result, because once you are making profits, once you are obeying all the regulations and everything, your brand looks attractive. And it is that attractiveness and that's credibility and that's loyalty that will make you the profits that will eventually let you have some to spare and then want to be a good corporate citizen by donating to support some good initiatives that other people are doing. So I think we are on course.
Okay. So we're talking about organizations making sure that their products meets the standards, especially when you're looking at from the consumer perspective. It's very important. And I think in one of my articles when I was reading, I came across a case study that had to do with Nestle Ghana, not Nestle Ghana, Nestle as a brand. And they came up with the baby milk, which went bad in the 1970s. And a publication in London actually backfired, and it was a big blow to them. So it tells you that if you do not do things in the right direction, and we know that consumers reward organizations that do right in society, and the doing right is not just about donations. Yeah. If you're promised to give a certain product to the consumer, you should be able to deliver that and be able to get the money. Now, what lessons, in your view, can we draw out of our practice of corporate social responsibility? What are we not doing right? What lessons can we take home and be able to develop better internal CSR policies?
Okay, anyway, I think that from the earlier discussions we've had, we've acknowledged that CSR is a strategic decision, and it starts from the birth of the organization right up to the sustainability of your business as an organization. And to achieve that, there are a lot of things that you need to do, or areas that our organizations need to pay attention to enjoy that. So as we live as practitioners, as we listen in as non-practitioners or as employees of organizations, we have a responsibility to ensure that our organizations are following their decision to be responsible. And by being responsible, if your organization is not applying all the standards or regulatory requirement that guides their operations, you need to be in a position to draw their attention, because that has impact for your operations as an organization. When it comes to employee relations, organizations needs to pay particular attention to that, because that's a critical aspect of your CSR. When your employees are happy, you should know that your customers are happy customers, especially in this crisis, in this pandemic, where we all don't know what's going to happen, and there's so much uncertainty in the system. I think organizations need to be transparent. You need to talk to your employees. You need to give them some level of assurance. If you think at any point in time that your operations might not be sustainable and people would need to go home, you need to do that tactically and ensure that in doing that, you don't hurt people. People are not unfairly treated. Because remember, people depend on organizations because we know that your activities and your actions impact us. Then you have your consumers who are relying on you. They also need to be sure that beyond COVID-19, you will be there for them. And so if at any point in time you think things would change, you should constantly engage them. It should be simple, it should be straightforward, it should be convincing. And you need to keep that conversation going. And then you have the government is also relying on you. Everybody is calling on organizations now. And so if you are in the position to pay your taxes, if you are in your position to do, it's not only donating to the COVID-19 fund. If there are other things you can do to support around this time. It might not be monetary. It might be taking care of your immediate environment. So maybe in your community, you are in a position to produce hand sanitizers or donate masks or do things that would support the people who are within your immediate reach. You can do that. Because around this time, everybody needs everyone. And I also think that going forward, we should limit the pressure that we have and the expectations that we have for organizations, especially when it comes to donating physical cash or any other thing in that regard, because they are in pressure, as much pressure as we are in. Nobody knew this crisis was going to come. It's not one of our usual crisis management plans where we have already practiced the crisis and how we are going to respond. And so when it comes, you just go pick your crisis communications policy and then you go. Everybody is firefighting. Organizations are doing same. And so I think that we should help them to be sustainable and limit our expectations of them, especially when it comes to donating for all of us to see, so that they can pay attention to the little things. They can pay attention to the business practices that would ensure that they stay afloat even within the crisis, so that they can pay attention to their employees and make sure that they have work, they have something going now. Pay attention to the things they can do to ease the pressure on their employees. Now people are doing working from home. It's all over. Companies are allowing their employees. If you are a company and you are in a position to do that, I think you should allow your employees that flexibility. All those things add up to you being a responsible organization.
Okay, Eunice, one of the things that have come up since this pandemic outbreak is the issue of unemployment. I mean, laying off staff. And this week, for instance, I think the media houses have been in the news. Most of the media houses have been in the news for laying off some of their staff members. I have read articles from some scholars, especially from Harvard University and others, who are saying that it is not the right time to lay off a staff around these difficult times. The better approach probably might be cutting salaries and making sure that even if the person is earning just 30% of their salary, it helps them to just lay them off. And people are also looking at it from maybe a suicide perspective and all that. From a CSR perspective, what would you recommend?
If you say from a CSR perspective, I would say organizations shouldn't lay their employees off. But of course,
does that make
we know that for
not responsible enough? I mean, for lack of better word, does that make an organization not responsible enough? I mean, to lay off staff in these critical times?
You know what, this is a very interesting question, because you also remember that we have said that for organizations to also be socially responsible, we expect that they will be sustainable, I mean profitable. So I think that around this time, because no one planned this and a lot of them are firefighting, some organizations may, out of fear of not knowing what would happen or totally crumbling down, may want to immediately lay off employees as the first thing that comes to mind, perhaps, so that they can save some money for other things. But I think that in doing that, we need to be careful and do it right. If you're laying them off, are you going to follow all the processes and procedures that ensure that if you are laying somebody off, you're not just asking the person to go without giving them anything, because they didn't ask for this. And certainly you, the organization, didn't ask for it. I'm not an HR practitioner, but I think that in laying people off, as a responsible organization, you do regulatory framework. So you just don't get up and ask people to go home because COVID-19 is here and you're not making money, and people, you do it and do it the right way. If it means talking to them to find a way out, maybe you can agree, come to a consensus with them and agree the best way out. Like you said, some are looking at pay cuts so that you don't go home completely without nothing. But we sit down and talk. I think that transparency and talking to people and engaging employees is one hallmark of a responsible organization. So if you are going to lay us off, or you think that because of the COVID-19, our businesses are not going on well, people are not buying from us, or our operations are blocked. Like in the case of the airlines, people are not flying. What can we do to ensure that both of us are in a comfortable position? So you talk about it with them. That's what responsible organizations do. You don't give me a letter when I'm home and he just writes to me that don't come to work again. We've laid you off because we can't sustain our operations. Responsible organizations do not do that. Responsible organizations engage. You talk about it, and then we all come to a consensus. If it means I going home and waiting patiently for the COVID-19 to be over for me to come to work, or if they lift the bans on traveling or anything we need to do, I should be in the known as an employee. So I think that's what responsible organizations should do. They should talk to their employees. They should engage them. They should come to a middle ground. They should do it in such a way that the employees do not go home and commit suicide, but we all live happy, because I understand your position as an organization. If you're not making profit, you're not making money, it's me you talk to, because I work with you. So I expect that responsible organizations would engage and then come to a proper consensus with their employees, and not just lay them off because they think that is the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, but sometimes some of these employees would even want to work for some time until the company gets back on its needs so that it can pay them salaries. And I think that even sometimes some of the recommendations is that, cut the salaries of the management members so that you can use that to sort out those at the bottom line. But then hardly do you find some of these media houses doing that. And sometimes the most annoying part is those who have not even paid for months, and they will go ahead to lay you off just because there's crisis. They will use that as an excuse. But then I have a couple of comments. I mean, I have a couple of comments here. Josephine Asantewaa says, I bet a lot of professionals don't even know this CSR policy even exists. Perhaps IPR Ghana can also help members to get to know more about the policy. That's very true. A lot of people do not know that this policy exists. And Miss Paulina Kwanche says, good service quality is also CSR. That's a lesson a lot of organizations in Ghana need to learn. That's very, very true. I mean, we have some of our telecommunications companies doing huge sums of money and doing all manner of things within the communities. Yet, when it comes to providing services, it's appalling, and they do not do things in that direction. So I think that we need to look at that as well. Faith says, what is the point to donating to the public when your employees are not well paid and treated well? That's a very great observation there, or point, Faith. Of what use is a donation if I'm not being paid well? I recall within the last 2 weeks, an organization donated to the AMA, and I saw comments from some people who said that we are here and we are hungry, and you are donating to AMA. Of what use is your donation if people within your internal publics are hungry? So more education from Samuel Abayata. He says more education needs to go into understanding the difference between CSR and corporate philanthropy. That's where the damage is. That's very true. Prosper Chidi Kwashi says, good one day about employee welfare, the critical aspect of CSR. Most organizations don't know that. The axiom of charity begins at home in the case of employee welfare and the concept of CSR. Thank you so much for your comments. Josephine Kim again says, ensuring job security is also part of CSR. That is very, very true. Prosper is saying laying off staff and the issue of CSR is an issue of ethical dilemma. Is it true? Is it just an issue of ethical dilemma? Laying off staff.
It could be.
I think that you need to put yourself in the shoes of your staff members and know that in these critical times, they have nowhere going. If people voluntarily send in their resignation, I think that's okay. But to boot them out of the organization, that is so unfair. That's what I think. Great show. Thank you so much. Going off, would love to have the recording. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your comments. I really appreciate your comments. Eunice, your final words on the practice of corporate social responsibility in Ghana, please.
I think that my final words would be around the customer satisfaction and then quality of service that Paulina spoke about. I think that that's one area that we all drop the ball. A lot of organizations do, because they think that when we have satisfied you by building a school for you, that should be enough. But CSR that is done and done well, it's all encompassing and builds great credibility for organizations. So it starts from you meeting all your regulatory to the customer, where they are satisfied with what you are doing, because it is the satisfaction that would ensure that they are loyal to you and would keep coming back to you for your service. And it is their coming back to you that makes you profitable enough to want to part with some money. So I think that we should, as organizations or as PR practitioners, advising our institutions on which way to go in terms of having a holistic CSR. We should pay attention to service quality. We should pay attention to employee relations. We should pay attention to our internal operations and business practices and everything that would ensure that beyond our immediate environment, our prosperity as an organization or as organizations are felt elsewhere and in our service delivery and in the end products that we give to our customers.
Awesome. So it should reflect on the triple bottom line concept, which is the planet, the people, and profits. Thank you so much, Eunice.
Exactly.
It's been great having you here. Thank you for the insightful ideas on CSR Lens. Hopefully, I'll have you back to share more ideas with us.
Thank you, Asantewaa, for having me. It was great being here. Thank you.
All right, viewers. So this is where we draw the curtains on CSR Lens. It's been an awesome production or broadcast today. Thank you so much for joining us and joining in with your comments and your questions as well. We hope that you did enjoy this particular session, and hopefully next week we are going to have another guest to help us delve into other aspects of corporate social responsibility. My name is Asantewaa Brown. This is CSR Lens. Thanks.